What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Killmark Collectors. My name is Brandon, and today we are going to be doing an after-action debrief of the battle in Ewok, which I just love because I'm a Star Wars nerd, but also because this was one of the bigger fights that I've been in recently between Genfed and the Silent Alliance. Now, I'm not going to go into the details around how we got here. If you guys are interested in kind of the meta of the diplomacy and all that, I'd highly recommend that you check out Silent Rambo and Echoes of New Eden, or Damon Zell with Echoes from the Front. Both are fantastic sources. I'm only going to be really looking at what's on grid here and what I'm able to see through kill mails and things like that. So let's jump straight in, and as you guys can see here, we've got the main Genfed fleet and the Silent fleet. We are on the Citadel. They are at about 150 off. I do have the tactical overlay updated or activated on this, so you guys can kind of see what's going on as we're talking through it. Now, you can see up here that Genfed does have 93 battleships on grid. They also have 86 battle cruisers, which was really interesting because as a silent pilot, we pretty much only fly the Logicane or Guardians. This was really interesting because as a silent pilot, we really only fly the Logicane, or we fly the like a Guardian, like a Ferox, or maybe a Cyclone or something like that. But there are very limited uses for battle cruisers. Whereas here you can see that Genfed brought a lot more battle cruisers than we had. A lot of these, in addition to being Logi and Guardians, were also the Prophecy commands that they have kind of built a lot of doctrine around. Now, as we start this fight, you can see that the main blob here, we do have scepters on the other side of it. But at this point, we're really just using the scepters to kind of get a sense of the battle, I think, to start controlling. Now, as we start engaging here, you can obviously see the drones coming in and swarming. Genfed was primarily using a kite doctrine that we've kind of seen as the meta for the last couple of months, whereas Silent, we were using primarily Tempest and Brawl. So as a result of that, we were planning to really kind of rush in here and try to get tackle and really be able to, you know, actually just get to grips and start killing things, right? That's what's happened in multiple engagements in the past. If we're able to get our Tempests into the enemy blob, we've been able to be very effective and really kill a lot of enemy ships with minimal losses. So that's what we're trying to do here today. Now you can see here I was a bad CTA pilot. I didn't have all of my settings set ahead of time, so I'm changing those now. But this is where kind of the first twist in the battle occurred. Now, if we look here, you can see that Genfed does have, you know, their main blob, obviously, and we're starting to move towards that. But here you can, you know, kind of see with the tactical overlay, we have kind of the main blob over here, but then we also have this other group that's steadily moving this way. Now, as that happens, you'll kind of notice here that they actually disengage with their main ships, and it creates a really interesting tactical situation for us. When we look at how these engagements, again, have really broken down, it's been, can we get into the main blob and then just start killing things as quickly as possible? And what Genfed is doing here is they're basically trying to mitigate that risk of us getting in close and be able to kind of keep us from really leveraging our strengths. If you look at how this is set up, Genfed has a fleet here, they obviously have scepters up here, and they're trying to basically split out so that we are forced to chase them and be out of range of our guns, basically, for a good portion of this engagement. When we started to chase one fleet down, and you can actually even see it better here, because we again have this fleet here, this one that's moving down here, and this one's moving down here. When we started to chase these things down, what happened is we were able to get into grips, but we left ourselves exposed. If you think about the way that these types of engagements normally run, you have the main Guardian pulls out ahead, and then you have the other ships that are following behind. And whether they just aren't anchored appropriately, or if they are just slower than the main Guardian, or if maybe they don't have as good of skills, so they can't turn as quickly, their inertia modifiers are not as good. Whatever that reason is, if they are not able to stay anchored, then it leaves them exposed and ultimately able to be picked off kind of one by one as they fall out of the bubble. Now, when we were looking at this, and you can see it a little bit here, but because I wasn't in the main fleet, it's a little bit harder to see. We obviously do have the three Genfed fleets that are kind of spread out. We have our scepters that are coming in on this one here, and the tail, you can almost kind of see it right back here, is outside of that bubble. So if these fleets had been, strike fit, for example, or something like that, they could have been trying to pick off those fleets or those extra ships that were lagging behind out of that bubble. Now, because they were drone fit, or they were kite ships, they weren't quite as able to do that. It was a little bit harder because they had to get obviously the drones onto those ships, and by the time they did, they probably could have gotten under the bubble. But it was an interesting tactical decision by Genfed, and one that I think could have resulted in a lot more pain and suffering than we were lucky that it did. As we took out this first fleet, we were able to, again, kind of reconsolidate under the bubble. You can see I'm only like 10 kilometers from the Nightmare right now. So we were able to reconsolidate. Our scepters were able to kind of disengage a little bit so that they were able to reposition to go work on the next one. But our fleet as the Logi did pull a little bit of range. And you can see here, this distance here between here and here is about 35 kilometers. And that is well within the optimal range of our large shield repairs, but it's also close enough that if we need support from the enemy, or from our own Logi when the enemy comes in, we're able to get that. So if we keep going here, you'll see again, we're trying to stay around 30 kilometers from our bubbler. You can see that Genfed is starting to kind of consolidate a little bit. And it's really kind of interesting how these fleets were all kind of moving together. Now, if I were in Genfed, or if I was an FC of Genfed, I think what I would have liked to have seen was for them to scatter a little bit more, again, with the intention and the idea of being able to really draw us out and string beam us along a little bit. It's a technical military term there for those of you that are wondering. Now, yes, I did realize that I took a second to loot here. That was because I was also looking at the number of wrecks, and at this point there were about 40 wrecks, I believe, on the field. And so it was a very important moment for us, because we had to kind of decide which fleet to go after next and how that was going to work. Now, we still had, again, kind of these two main fleets. Those did eventually break up into another third fleet, but ultimately I think we were able to kind of consolidate and get back onto the main targets, and really be able to again bring that strength of the Tempest as the brawler to bear. The thing that I really enjoyed with this fight, again, it was really the first big fight that I'd had with the tactical overlay enabled. I loved being able to see the direction of all of these ships going. And if you notice here, they are all going the same direction. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think that, again, with the way Genfed was trying to fight this battle, I would have actually been expecting them to kind of come back this way to try to circle around our Logi a little bit more. And it looks like they're kind of coming back towards this towards the fight now, but I think that they were limited maybe a little bit by their drone range. You can see a lot of the drones are just kind of hanging out with the main bubble here as they're disengaging. But we did eventually see some of those start to come up and hit our Logi up here right in this area when they're trying to just again dump drones on us. Now, as these fleets are moving around, we were trying to get the tackle on these. You can see kind of scepters coming in and out, and the challenge, right, is how do we make sure that these very fragile scepters stay alive long enough to actually be able to get the tackle that we need. Now, at this point, I do want to highlight that this is where being on comms was so super important. And if you guys haven't been in a CTA where you've been on comms, this level of coordination is just not possible with in-game commands or in-game chat. And so being able to work through this and talk with your court mates and your alliance mates to get into these positions is just beyond critical. It really, there's no other way to say it. It's just absolutely vital that you're able to do this. Now at this point, I think that we were actually in probably our most vulnerable spot of the entire battle. We were almost pincered between these two different groups, and if they had been fit for brawl, obviously we would have been in a lot of trouble because they would have just crashed us. But as it was, we had our main fleet, and you can kind of see them here, chasing this, again, Prophecy Command and kind of Kite fleet. And then we also had our enemy here, and our Logi was here. So if I'm just drawing on this, right, so this is our Logi, this is SHH Brawl, and then this is, you know, our Genfed and Genfed. So as we're obviously talking about this and the way that they're collapsing in on us, or they're trying to collapse, we're trying to chase after this fleet to get tackle on these guys. You can see our Scepters kind of coming and moseying in here, trying to get that tackle on the Guardians. But the enemy fleet that was behind us recognized that this was going on, and their FC, again, I wasn't in their comms, so I don't know, but I think their FC made a fantastic decision to crash our Logi. Because what happened was you had a group here, and then there's a little bit of, or a couple of battleships back here as well. And they were coming in and trying to get on our Logi right in the center here, and it forced this group, and it forced the group over here to turn back around, make a U-turn, and come back to help save our very glass cannon, but we're Logi, so just very fragile in general, hulls, right? So we were able to call for reinforcements. They were still close enough where they were able to turn around, they were able to come in and actually kind of flip the script a little bit on some of those battleships that were coming in and really trying to kill us. Now, with that, obviously, we were very fortunate also to have our Scepters warp in here. They were able to then spread points, get tackle, and be able to really start pinning stuff down so that we could actually finish this out and get the kills that we needed. Now, as I'm doing this, we are wrapping up here towards the end of the battle, and so just to go over the numbers real quick, we do still have 89 battleships on grid. There are 35 battle cruisers. Again, most of those are going to be Logi, but there are other things mixed in there as well. Now, as we're again kind of cleaning this up, there was, I think in just a minute I switched to the enemy view. I'm trying to see. It's kind of awkward. I'm kind of waiting. So we're chasing, we're spreading points, we're getting tackle on as much as we can at this point. The other fleet that was down here, I think that they did. There we go. So right now, the other fleets that are still on the field, we have this one over here. We have a smaller one over here. They do have 52 battleships on grid. 39 when they started. They had close to, I think, 90 battle cruisers and about 93 or 94 battleships. So those numbers are about half of the battleships and about a third, half to a third of the battle cruisers. So overall, this was a really fun fight. This took about 30 minutes. I would like to, again, just say great fight to Genfed. You'll see in just a minute here, they started to pull back and warp back towards the gate and ultimately make their way back to Losec. I think that was the right tactical call at this point. We were able to save the Citadel, or this Citadel, I should say. But ultimately, this particular grid, Silent, I think, was able to win. So that, of course, brings us to the question of who won. And if we look at it from a mission objective base, we could say that Silent was on grid to defend this particular Citadel, and in doing so, we killed a lot of ships and we were able to do that. In terms of the ISK war, and I know that's one that is typically brought up, we did collect all of the kill mails, or all the ones that we can get, in Discord using the Oculus bot, which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, it's fantastic. It makes stuff like this so easy because we're able to actually like filter by the constellation and the time period down to, you know, a 4 or 5 hour block. So we were able to do that, and when we did, we found that we had about 97 billion in kills. If we basically take the insurance value of all of that, you know, so basically take a third of that for what the actual pilots would have to pay to get that those ships back, we're talking about 33 billion ISK in ships and kills. Now, if you factor in that those ships have to then go back and buy the mods and all that other stuff, I'm going to say that that's going to cost another 5 billion. And so let's say 38 billion for the actual total losses on the Genfed side. Now, again, just looking at this and kind of what we have in Discord, Silent looks like we've lost about 6 battleships and then about 12 to 14 battle cruisers. That altogether, again, probably ends up being around 8 or 9 billion, just based off the kill mills and based off of the doctrine costs that our ships are. If we take that again, take 30%, we're looking at around 3 billion in ISK. I'm not going to take the modules there because we were able to hold the field and loot, and a lot of people were able to get their stuff contracted back or all of that. So we're just going to call that, again, probably about 3 billion in kills. Now, the twist here, and the thing that I think Genfed needs to be commended for, is that while this was going on, they had also found another Citadel that was in armor, and that they were able to move a force to and ultimately to blow up. Now, the reason that this Citadel was not defended, I don't know the real backstory, or I don't know the full backstory, I should say, but I do know that it was not reported to our leadership on comms. There were some very colorful language used when it was discovered that this Citadel was in Hull and that there was a Red Fleet moving there. So either way, we were not organized enough. Genfed saw an opportunity, they took advantage of it, and as a result, they got a 15 billion ISK kill on that Citadel. Now, that is obviously not insurable, and therefore, if we look at the total ISK throughout the day, we're looking at really around a 38 billion loss for Genfed versus, unfortunately, about an 18 or 19 billion ISK loss for Silent. Hi guys, Future Editing Brandon here. Real quickly, directly talking to my Silent pilots, I love you guys, you are fantastic, but we have got to be better about reporting these timers. Please, if you see a timer on one of your corp citadels, whether it's an alt corp or your main corp or whatever, if you see the little notification, please make sure that you are talking in your discords and that somebody is reporting that timer to military leadership. I really don't want to be in a position where I have to make a statement in a video that, yeah, we won the fight and it should have been this overwhelming victory, but we lost a Citadel and therefore it wasn't as big as a victory, or whatever. I really don't want to have to keep doing that. So please, if you guys can, if you see that, just say something in corp chat, say something in Discord, just make sure that somebody is reporting that timer to military leadership. Okay, that's all. I'm off my soapbox. Thanks. Back to the video. It sucks. I don't like having to say that we lost a Citadel, especially just when it's, you know, something that we should have been able to defend. But again, kudos to Genfed. You guys found the weak spot and were able to exploit it. But anyways, guys, thanks so much for joining. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you for sticking with me and, you know, watching this. Thank you for coming out and fleeting up. This is exactly why I love Eve Echoes. I love these big scale battles. I love being able to get that sense of scale that we have with some of this game and some of these battles. So great fight all around. I look forward to the next one. And until next time, remember, kill marks last forever and fly safe. Have a good one.